President Trump taking on the media today, accusing the Boston Globe of collusion with other newspapers as more than 300 publications published coordinated editorials. It was organized by the Boston Globe. This all to promote freedom of the press. President Trump tweeted, the Boston Globe, which was sold to the failing New York Times for $1.3 billion plus $800 million in losses and investment, or $2.1 billion, was then sold by the Times for $1. Now the Globe is in collusion with other papers on free press. Prove it. Here now to discuss Kevin Walling, a Democratic strategist. Stephanie Hamill's with us, video columnist for the Daily Caller. Morgan Ortagus is back with us as well. Stephanie Hamill, let me begin with you. What your thoughts on this sort of pushback? I know a lot of people in the media who even have admiration for President Trump thinks he crosses the line when he says the media is the enemy of the people.
Yeah, okay, so I have to ask, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Did the media start attacking Trump first, or did Trump start attacking the media? And so we look at a lot of these studies, one specifically done by the Media Research Center, that showed that 90% of the coverage of Trump is negative. That's very unfair. So when he says that the press is the enemy of the people, I wouldn't disagree in some cases. I mean, a lot of these media outlets are pushing a globalist agenda, constant negative coverage of Trump, and he has the right to defend himself.
Kevin?
Sure. I couldn't disagree with Stephanie more in that the press is not the enemy of the people. And these editorials out in over 300 publications are important to read in each of these communities. And I think we need to hold up the voices of Ivanka Trump, who said the press is not the enemy of the people. Every single U.S. senator today passed a resolution, it was passed unanimously, saying that the press is not the enemy of the people and condemns any attacks on the free press. I think we need to tamp down the rhetoric on both sides.
Let me ask you this, though, Kevin.
Sure.
There's strong anti-Trump sentiment that's laced in every single story. The ranking of stories, how they're promoted, how they're articulated, and sometimes even if they make it on air or in publications like the economic stuff we're talking about tonight, I don't know that anyone's going to cover that. Do you think some in the media, not the media overall, but some have such animosity, personal disdain for President Trump that it skews what they write and say?
Sure, I think there's personal bias in everything that we do. I think there's bias here on Fox News, on CNN, on MSNBC, but it's important to really tamp down the rhetoric and to make sure and to call out the members of the media when it's very clear that a line has been crossed and that these attacks are warranted, right. In terms of miscalculation.
Well,
I applaud, Sarah Sanders, who backtracked a misstatement that she said from the podium yesterday.
Well, if you make a mistake, you make a mistake. But I think we're conflating a couple of things. I do want to read another President Trump tweet on this topic. There's nothing that I would want more for our country than true freedom of the press. The fact is that the press is free to write and say anything it wants, but much of what it says is fake news, pushing a political agenda, or just plain trying to hurt people. Honesty wins. And I guess that's what I'm talking about there, Morgan. It's just, I mean, it's pretty, it's not even, to Stephanie's point, it's overwhelming. Over 90% of the stories about President Trump were negative.
I think the LA Times and their editorial board today was actually smart. I read their editorial, and I encourage your readers to. And they certainly agree with President Trump on many things. But they said that they did not want to be a part of groupthink, and they did not want to be a part of a coordinated effort, because that's exactly what the president is talking about. I think one of the things that the president is sensitive about is we saw during the Republican primary, it was estimated that the president got at least something like $1 billion worth of free advertisement for how much he was getting, free media and earned media, what we call it. So I think that he was really inflated by the media during the primary, because he's great television. And so then, when he gets into the general election, all of a sudden they turned on him and he started getting incredibly negative press. And he is not one. He's shown, whether it's China, as you and I were talking earlier, or whether it's the media, he's shown if someone punches him, he's going to punch back harder. He's not a politician. A lot of people may not like it, but that's his style, and I don't think he's going to let up. Yeah,
it's so interesting that the LA Times piece that you mentioned, they are, I guess, suggesting that, hey, by acting together as a cabal, or it almost helps President Trump say, hey, they're all against me. On the same topic, guys, with the media, a lot of people now blasting President Trump for revoking ex-CIA head John Brennan's security clearance. Brennan himself tweeted out that this action is part of a broader effort by Mr. Trump to suppress freedom of speech and punish critics. It should gravely worry all Americans, including intelligence professionals, about the cost of speaking out. My principles are worth far more than clearances. I will not relent. Let me go back to you, Morgan, because you were in this community. Listen, a variety of people have actually come out and said they think Brennan is wrong, from Stephen Hayes to Senator Susan Collins. These aren't Trump sycophants, right?
Yeah.
Where do you stand on this?
I think that probably no one is more thrilled to get their security clearance revoked than John Brennan. The reason why I say that is because I have never seen a CIA director spend so much time in front of the media. He's acting in a way in which we've never seen a CIA director act before, right? When you look at, let's look at Leon Panetta, who was CIA director and then also Secretary of Defense. He's had his criticisms of particular policies of the administration, but he conducts himself with decorum in a way that's respectable for the office.
Right.
The CIA director is representing thousands of people in the intelligence community who are nonpartisan professionals and want to serve whichever president is in power. And he's politicized to that community to their detriment.
Stephanie, quickly, your thoughts on this, please?
Yeah, Brennan should have had his security clearance revoked a long time ago. This guy is a political hack. He has a history of lying and spying. We know that under his direction, the CIA spied on Senate staffers. They lied about it for many months. Then he had to apologize. So I'm not against this. I think it was a good call, and I think there are many other people that should have their security clearances revoked as well.